that was what I did. And the funny thing was, in 10th grade, although I didn't really grow that big, my grades went from C's to straight A's. I don't know if it's because nobody was picking on me anymore or my brain worked better. I have no idea. But I used to be a poor student and I became a good student. And then at the same time, I went more extreme with the carnivore diet.
So how tall were you originally before carnivore and then after carnivore? Because that
Well,
one, I think this is for every single adolescent out there who's still growing. This is one of the best cases, I think, of showing you how healthy carnivore really is. And for anybody out there, like he's a really good example. Once again, that should have been 41 years of a heart attack and still no heart attack. So clearly something's going on.
but what I like to do is either a boiled iguana, where you simply cut up the legs and tail, put it in boiling water, and then when it starts to swell, you can cut the skin and it'll come right out.
All right, so in this video, this very, very special interview. In fact, it's somebody who has been carnivore for a very, very long time. And there are some very, very important things and key takeaways from him, because I think they are great examples just to show you that carnivore isn't just a healthy way of eating. It is the best way. And there are some very, very clear indicators. But we will get to that later. First, tell us a little bit about yourself, Rick, and tell us how exactly did you become carnivore and what made you start carnivore?
Well, I was born in 1968, and that makes me 56 years old now. I started carnivore at age 15, and I'm being attacked by another carnivore, which is actually a kitten that my neighbor found last weekend after the hurricane. So we call him Milton, Milton the cat. And this little thing, I fed him raw meat, but now he's kind of crazy. He should calm down. But anyway, in terms of my carnivore journey, I started the carnivore journey basically out of frustration. And what it was is that I was a kid, and in my house, I actually have these old, Polaroid pictures. I would think I was about 10 years old at the time. I was kind of I'm always been skinny, and I was kind of a short kid. And compared to, my dad wasn't very tall, but he looked like a giant compared to me around that time. I guess it was 1978 or 79. I don't know. By the time that I got to junior high, my life became torture because when you're the little kid in school, everybody wants to pick on you, and no matter how much you try to avoid it, they're always going to seek you out. And they're going to find a moment when you're not feeling well or when you're not looking, and they'll do something stupid to you like push you down the stairs, take your books away, spit on you, who knows what else. So junior high was just not fun. And I did have kind of a blow up in ninth grade. I actually got taken out of physical education because I got extremely violent with the one kid that kept bothering me. And, I couldn't deal with it anymore. So after that experience, high school was going to be in 1983 after the summer. I was helping my dad build a carport, and he left some of the wood loose, and I fell through, and I broke my arm on a metal sawhorse, which I still have. Now, it's a wonder it wasn't a clean break. It was actually some kind of fracture, so I didn't need a cast, but they gave me a sling, which I also found when I was cleaning up some of my old stuff. So not only was I going to be put into high school, and I thought of high school as something like, where you have all the 12th graders out there to beat up the 10th graders. I thought it was going to be an extremely unpleasant experience. And then on top of that, it's like a bird with a broken wing, with my left arm broken. And I was like, oh, I was dreading the whole moment. And then on top of that, my mom was taking courses because she was a teacher and she had to get her certificate renewed. So she wasn't home during the summer. My dad was working as an aircraft mechanic. He was only there on the weekend, which coincidentally is when I broke my arm. So what eventually happened is I had several things happen. I broke my arm. I was stuck at home. My parents wouldn't be there, so they wouldn't be able to cook for me. I didn't really cook anything before then. And it was just a matter of, well, I'm going to have to eat what I can to survive while I get better. And then, of course, I go back to school. And you know how that is. I don't know. I guess that's what people refer to as depression, because I was not feeling good about the whole situation. And I started to think, I was by myself, and usually I have my parents or friends around, but it was summer and I had time to think. And I thought, you know what? Maybe what I should do something about my diet. And I never liked healthy foods. My dad convinced me that healthy foods had to taste bad. They gave me a lot of wheat germ, brewer's yeast tablets, and those goofy, you know, those capsules and tablets and all the stuff that was hard to swallow. And if you did bite into it, it tasted nasty. Lots of vitamin C. And of course, vitamin C to me tasted like candy because, as you know, it's full of sugar. And the fruit juices, my dad was very much into juicing. He was into the Jack LaLanne, had that juicer. Then there was a guy called the Juice Man that used to advertise. I think his name was Jay Cordich. And he was talking about all these healthy juices. And they were all nasty. It looked like something that came out of a lawnmower, like when you mowed the lawn and it was wet and the green syrup comes out. That's what it looked like. And then my dad would throw like mangoes in there to sweeten it up. Oh, drink this. It'll make you healthy. It'll make you gain weight. It'll make you stronger. Oh, beans. That was the other thing. Rice and beans. You have to eat rice and beans. My dad is of, Spanish Cuban descent. So he ate a lot of rice and beans. But when it came to red meat, that was considered to be not very good because too much red meat would give you colon cancer. You get heart disease and all that. And as a kid, I always liked meat. When we used to go to the Sweden House Smorgasbord, which was an all-you-can-eat place, I would hit the fried chicken, but they had this like a roast beef, and they would have the guy with the big chef's hat on, and they cut strips of that off. And I would always want to eat that. But the problem was, my mother would say, well, you have to eat your salad first. And I hate salad. I hate vegetables. I used to tell my mom, I'm not Bugs Bunny. I'm not going to eat carrots. And it just wasn't great. So look at this. Dealing with this little beast. It just won't stop. I'm going to have to lock you in the bathroom. You're becoming a menace. But yeah, so here I am, a teenager getting ready for high school, not looking forward to it, and thinking, well, I have to eat food, but we had some canned stuff. We had some canned ravioli and some other things that you could eat. You can only eat so much of that stuff before you get fed up with it. So I thought, well, there is something that I can eat that's easy to make. And my dad had grilled before, and I had grilled, and it wasn't that difficult to cook some meat. So I figured, well, I'll just cook meat on the stove. And I had my parents get me ground meat, and thankfully, I remember it was on sale at Grand Union. They bought a bunch of it, and they just basically gave it to me. And don't burn yourself, don't burn the house down, and go ahead and make the food that you like. And that's what I did. So I started on a diet of eating meat. Now, back then, my parents didn't believe in butter. They used margarine, but I hated that stuff because it tasted nasty. But then again, when it's summertime and you have some time off and you have a bicycle and the Grand Union's not that far away, and neither is the Winn-Dixie, I thought, hey, I'm going to take some of the money that I got. I'm going to get some butter. And I hadn't had butter for a very long time. So I started getting butter and using that to cook the eggs. And then I got lard. They used to have lard back then in a plastic tub. My mother used to use something called Super Brand Spread, which was some kind of margarine crap. I don't know what it was. It looked like axle grease. It looked like something you'd use when you rebuild your bike, put that in there instead of grease. It was just absolutely terrible stuff. And it smelled like paint. But the lard was very nice. And I used to eat the lard because the other thing my mother says, well, the lard is unhealthy. And my dad said, it's going to give you heart disease. So I said, I don't care. So then I start thinking, heart disease, that doesn't seem so bad. There used to be a TV show. I don't know if you've seen it. It was called Sanford and Son. You had Fred Sanford, and every time he got stressed out, he said, oh, this is the big one, and he's going to have a heart attack. And then Elizabeth, that was his wife, I guess, that died. I'm coming to you. Ah,
Oh,
animal.
it's it's a camera attack.
Goodness. All right, cat, you got to go out. This is ridiculous. We're going to have to move the kitten. Oh, okay, we got another kitten problem here. You are going out. You are going out. I'm going to put you in the bathroom until this is over, okay? Let's go. Anybody that says that you have to eat carbohydrates for energy has never owned a kitten because those things have endless energy. Nothing can stop them. It's insane. You got to let them run around until they finally get tired and fall asleep for an hour. And he was sleeping fine before, but now that I'm trying to do an interview, the little beast is torturing me. Anyway, before I got distracted, which is easy to do around here, what I was saying is that when I was younger, and I used to watch TV shows like Sanford and Son, they used to joke about heart attack. And I always believed that obviously none of us live forever. Eventually, we're all going to kick the bucket, just like Bugs Bunny always said, the rabbit kicked the bucket. So I had very strange ways of looking at it, and I thought, well, if you're going to die sooner or later, how would you like to go? Well, I would like to go quickly. I wouldn't, and we had friends and relatives that had been in the nursing home. My grandmother had been in the nursing home for like 10 years. I always hated that place. You go in there, it smells like urine. It's like mold and urine all in one. It's depressing. People make moaning noises. It's like some kind of medieval torture chamber. And I go, well, I don't want to end up there. I would rather be strong and healthy and just have the big heart attack and fall over. So I thought, well, what's the downside to eating meat, the food that I like? Well, colon cancer or heart attack. Well, my mother actually had breast cancer, and she never ate beef. She hated beef. She said, "Ooh, steak, it's terrible." And we had a friend of ours that was a vegetarian, or I guess more like a vegan, because I don't even think she ate eggs. She had constant infections all the time, ear infection, skin infection. It was like infection after infection. So I thought, well, if you're going to eat that healthy food, you're going to be frail and weak, and you're not going to be able to do anything. You might as well be dead. So why not just eat all that fatty lard and beef fat and steak and all the good stuff, all the enjoyable food, and then just drop dead. Bam. And that's it. So I started the diet in 83. I went to high school. High school started off not so great. Again, for the first few weeks of school, a couple weeks I had that stupid sling and I felt kind of helpless. But on the good side, they put me in a PE class that was basically for disabled or sick kids, so I didn't have to go out in the hot field, the sun with all the other kids. We spent most of our time indoors, and that wasn't too bad. So, and then as time went on, I got used to the routine. I was able to make my ground beef stew or have some like steak or pork or chicken or whatever it was. And I'd stuff it into one of those Tupperware containers. The Tupperware was like round with a corrugated lid and plastic container. Now, eventually, I got away from that because those plastic containers were impossible to clean. For some reason, when you would put the ground beef stew in there, it would get greasy and slimy. So the thing was it was constantly greasy. And I guess in a way that was good because I never heated it up. I would make the stew, and then when it cooled off, I would dump it in the containers. And I would let it sit there. And then, of course, when I went to lunch, I would take the container with me. Then I started using, what do you call it, steaks. So I started taking steak and other meats to school. But the problem was, at that time, I was sort of used to having manners. So what I would do, I would take a knife and fork. And that was about the time in school they started to have those stupid plastic sporks. Now, when I was younger, we actually had knives and forks, but they were sort of like dull, so the kids wouldn't stab each other. But by the time I got to high school, people were getting paranoid, so they figured that metal knives and forks were weapons, and I had a steak knife and I had a fork, so they wouldn't let me in the cafeteria with it. So I had to start eating outside. So, and back then, when I was in high school, they would let you leave the school. Nowadays, school's a prison. They have a 6-foot fence. They only have one entrance. They have a police car and guards, and you can't even get in the place. So it's prison. But back then, they just said you can't bring that in the cafeteria. So I'd eat it outside. But eventually, what I started doing, I just stopped bringing the knife and fork, and I started eating with my hands. And that's where I got the reputation for being a caveman. So you can imagine, I was in 10th grade in 1983, this little kid, and I'm over there chomping on a steak or pork chops or chicken or whatever meat I had. I was using no knife or fork. I mean, I did have a paper towel to wipe my hands, and I'd wash my hands afterwards in the bathroom, but still, and I got used to that. So I would have my breakfast at home, which was meat and eggs. I would have my lunch, which was some type of meat, either ground beef. It could be steak. It could be chicken, pork. Sometimes I'd even have fish. But again, they wouldn't let you bring fish in the cafeteria. People would complain, oh, it smells bad. I was even eating sardines because they were convenient. They used to come in a can. You could open the can. And that was what I did. And the funny thing was, in 10th grade, although I didn't really grow that big, my grades went from C's to straight A's. I don't know if it's because nobody was picking on me anymore or my brain worked better. I have no idea. But I used to be a poor student and I became a good student. And then, by 11th grade, that's when I really started to grow. And then at the same time, I went more extreme with the carnivore diet. And by that time, I wasn't eating in the cafeteria anymore. I was in electronics class, and they would let you eat in the classroom. Sometimes I eat on the tables outside. So I would bring all kinds of stuff to school. In fact, I even had a portable grill that I would keep in the classroom. It was one of those electric grills, and you could plug it into the outlet outside, and I could cook my food right there. So it got to be better and better. And it was a lot of fun because, you'd have your class and you'd have lunch. It was enjoyable. And then I kept growing. And by the time I finished 11th grade, I was not picked on at all. My grades were good. I didn't mind going to school anymore. Before that, I hated it. And of course, senior year, I was very happy with school, great grades. And before I wanted to get a GED, after that, I decided to go to college. And my grades were high enough where I could get a scholarship. But I continued on the carnivore diet. Now, in 11th grade, I remember when my parents were at the store, they had a Time magazine article, and it was showing like a cholesterol, the bad news. And it showed a dish with 2 eggs and a frowning, like a strip of bacon, like a frown, saying the bad news about cholesterol. And I looked at that, and that was the moment that I started calling it the heart attack diet. So by the time I was a senior in high school, I told everyone, oh, it's lunchtime. It's time for my heart attack. And they would laugh because, what teenager has a heart attack? But since then, it was always a heart attack diet. Now, I wasn't eating anything exotic back then. That came later. But I was having chicken, fish, beef, whatever I could get. A lot of ground beef. That was my main thing. And I even used to play games. I learned how to can food in metal cans. So what I would do, I would get the labels off of the Chef Boyardee ravioli. I would put the ground meat mix that I made in the can. Then I'd put the ravioli label on it with some tape. And then I'd make everybody think I was eating ravioli because I figured if they knew that I had good meat in there, they'd probably steal it. Of course, I don't think anybody would take my food. But a can of ravioli, nobody would want that. The only difference between my cans of ravioli and the real thing, they had pop tops that you could pull off without a can opener. And mine, since it was home canned, you had to use, a can opener. I had one of those swing away or whatever that you clamp down and, do the thing. But that was something else I did. And of course, my diet really was sort of a joke. And I've always made it a big joke because I wasn't trying to be healthy. I always thought that sooner or later I was going to get that heart attack. And a lot of times I'd push myself if I'm working and I joke, oh, I'm going to have a heart attack. And they look at me like I'm crazy. To this day, I still do it. If I work hard, I tell them I'm not feeling so good. I'm going to have a heart attack. And they laugh because I've been the same weight since I was 25. And, I'm not like the famous carnivores. I don't have the muscles. I don't have the money, but I do have the humor. And I think, whenever somebody brings me on their channel, they have a hard time not laughing. Because even though I'm not a professional comedian, it seems like my experience does tickle everybody's funny bone. And I like that. That's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that you're bringing up so many points where the heart attack diet, basically, because that's what it's always. Everybody's always so worried. Oh my God, meat and eggs. That's gonna raise your cholesterol. You're gonna die, right? So already, and you've been doing that even before it became popular in terms of people making it so scared and people being so afraid of it. So that's actually pretty. That's once again, that's very, very interesting. So anybody out there who thinks that carnivore is dangerous, even when you're a kid. Once again, another example. I mean, how long has it been since that supposed heart attack should have happened?
That's a good point. I mean, it's been since 1983. I did go plant-based in 1993, but ever since the summer of 93, I've been carnivore 100%.
Yeah. I think it's actually really important to realize what works. If it clearly is working for you, which you luckily, I mean, really luckily, you found that out when you were a kid and you said, you know what, I'm just going to go with it. And it turns out it doesn't just work for you. It makes you feel better than ever. And And not only that, it did do something else I don't think that you covered. So how tall were you originally before carnivore and then after carnivore? Because that
Well,
one, I think this is for every single adolescent out there who's still growing. This is one of the best cases, I think, of showing you how healthy carnivore really is. So,
if you've looked at my YouTube page, you'll see that on my community or where they share, like pictures and stuff like that. I have a picture of me in 1983. They took the drama class outside. They took pictures, and I was shorter than the girls in junior high. I don't know what my height was. I could probably calculate it, but it was embarrassing. And I have friends now that are real short compared to me. They were taller than me back then. I think, the shortest boy in ninth grade. Well, there was one kid that was a dwarf that was shorter than me, but I was really short. And by the time I finished high school, I was the second tallest in the school. And by the time I was 25, I was taller than anybody else I know. I'm now 6'6". With my shoes on, I'm 6'7". So when I got my driver's license and they measured me, it put 6'7". So that's really tall. And no one in my family has ever been this tall. In fact, it's really unusual for someone like me to be that tall, because the other people I know that are tall, they have a longer face, they have a voice. If you think about, for example, the motivational speaker Anthony Robbins, I'm sure you've seen him. He has that sort of deep, kind of resonant kind of voice that comes with when you have a growth. There's like a pituitary issue and you get too much growth hormone. That's what most of the tall people I know are like. But I have a normal sounding voice. People see pictures of me, they don't realize how tall I am. When they stand next to me, then they realize how tall I am. I don't think it was like a growth hormone kind of thing. I think it was just all that meat that I was eating. It did something to my system, and it changed everything. I used to be a very hyperactive and very nervous kid, and I would get upset over all kinds of things. I'd cry and get mad. Something went wrong, I'd lose it. But after the few years on the carnivore diet, it didn't matter anymore. I used to worry so much about a test in school. I worried about some kid that was going to try to pick on me. It was always something. And I just didn't care anymore. It's like, whatever. So I grew taller, and I always attributed that to being taller. That, you're sort of like the gentle giant. You're taller and you're calmer. But now I'm beginning to wonder if it's all that meat and fat that I've eaten all those years that changed my mind to the point where I don't care. And it's fun because, another thing that some kids would do, as I was I have this slick down hair and I rode my bike. They had a movie called Pee Wee's Big Adventure. So they would say that I looked like Pee Wee Herman, and they'd make fun of me. And I thought, by the time I was in high school, I was laughing. I thought it was funny. Oh, that's great. They look at me like, what? I said, yeah, that's great. So I go, I know you are, but what am I? That kind of thing. And I'd make a joke out of it. So every time somebody would say something about me, like they said, oh, your ears stick out. Well, of course my ears don't stick out. I said, yeah, but yours stick out more than mine, so that's even funnier. Because in the 80s, I don't know if you remember seeing pictures of it, people would make their hair stick way out and they cover everything up. There was that whole big hair period. And me, I was more like the 50s. I wanted to have that grease down, and what I put in my hair, of course, is lard. I originally used Vaseline, but that stuff, it wasn't. I thought, hey, I saw a Tom and Jerry cartoon. Tom was putting lard in his hair so he could wear a zoot suit. So I started using lard in my hair. And it worked beautifully, because the Vaseline, it would kind of dry out over time. It would leak down, but the lard, it went right in and it stayed nice all day. But yeah, it was a combination of things. So from the shortest kid to the tallest, from one of the most, paranoid and hyperactive to one of the most relaxed, I think that was a huge change.
yeah. And once again, anybody out there with anxiety or some that sort of a thing, especially, I mean, once again, a really, really good case. It's just, it calms you down the more you're on it. Especially, I have to agree. Basically, same sort of thing. The longer that I'm on the carnivore diet, the more, I guess you could say, relaxed or calm that I become. It's really difficult to really, really sort of like throw me out of whack, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, that's once again just another really, really great example to show you that it works, and it works really, really well. But what do you eat now? What are some of the foods that you like to eat now? And what, as a 40-year carnivore, right?
41 actually.
41. Oh, I was a little bit off. As a 41-year-old carnivore.
Well, it depends. My breakfast has always been about the same, although I've had to adjust it because of inflation. I used to eat a dozen eggs a day for breakfast, which may be a little extreme, but I would have a dozen eggs a day and a piece of meat. Now I have 3 or 4 eggs a day because eggs are just too expensive. And then I'll have either beef or pork with breakfast. That's generally the thing. Now, I prefer beef. Whenever I can get on sale, I'll have about a pound of beef. But if I can't afford it, I'll have a pound of pork with breakfast. That's what I had today. I had 4 eggs and I had a pound of pork for breakfast, which is like 3 pork chops. And then for lunch, well, lunch depends. Normally, I like having ground beef stew for lunch. In my case, it's very basic. It's just ground beef cooked in water. That's it. I One thing is I don't season or salt any beef product. I don't salt steak. I don't salt ground beef. Anything that came out of a cow does not get salted, heart, tail, whatever, because I enjoy the flavor of beef so much that I don't want to ruin it with anything else. Now, I do put salt when I cook pork. I will put salt in the water, and I generally cook my meat in water. Although beef, I will cook on a grill or on a griddle. I do that. Um, on special, when I have plenty of meat, I will make a heart attack burger for lunch. There's nothing like a heart attack burger. It is the best hamburger in the entire world. I've never seen another burger that I crave more than a heart attack burger. If you've never seen a heart attack burger, what it is very simple. All my beef patties are half pound. I will never eat any beef patty less than half a pound. Those little discs that they put in the McDiarrhea and the Burger King and all that other nasty stuff, even the Square Wendy's thing, they are too small. That's something for a kitten, not for a real man. So what I do, I form the patties into half pound. I weigh them on a scale. I will take 4 of those patties. I will cook them on a grill or griddle. And then I have to make the buns for the heart attack burger. Now, of course, I never really liked bread. I always found bread to be kind of icky. So I decided, and this is, my teenage college years, I may design my own bread. I took pork rinds, which were, pretty easy to get, and you mix them with eggs and cheese. And you make your own so-called bread. And if you want the bread to rise, you simply add the baking powder to it, which I think is baking soda. I'm not sure what it is, but you mix it in there. When you heat it up, it'll rise. But I don't even care about that. So my heart attack burger basically doesn't rise. It's just this slab of cheese, pork rinds, and it makes me hungry thinking about it.
Thinking about it right now sounds really good.
It's really, and this is the problem when you eat the way that I do. I always cook everything. I don't eat out. So when I put the food in there and it starts cooking, I'm already thinking about eating, and I start to get hungrier and hungrier because I don't get hungry. I go the whole day, I don't get hungry. But when it comes time to eat and I see the meat and I see it cooking and I smell it and I hear it, then the hunger starts to build up and I can eat a lot. So imagine you got 4 patties sizzling away. You got your heart attack buns. I usually make the buns first because those take a little bit longer, and I'll do them on a flat griddle and you just heat it up. Then you do the burgers. And then what eventually happens is you put it together. Now, to make the heart attack burger complete, you need to have at least 8 slices of cheese. Now, there is one cheese that I absolutely hate. I've always hated it since I was a kid, and that are the individual slices that come in plastic. Those things taste disgusting, and they have an awful yellow color that looks like something that doesn't look good. Let's put it that way. The so-called Kraft American cheese. I say I do not like American cheese. The other type of cheese I hate is Swiss cheese. I absolutely hate Swiss cheese. And those are the 2 most popular ones they'll put on a burger. They'll have American cheese or they'll have bacon Swiss. So when it comes to cheese, I tend to like the more fermented cheeses. I mean, mozzarella, it's kind of plain. I like it. Yeah, great. But I prefer things like the most fermented hard cheddar you can get. And I like Gouda cheese and, provolone or whatever. Generally, the more fermented and harder the cheese, the better. I don't like cheeses that melt. So I'll put at least 8 slices on there. And then if I want to make more shock value, then if I have it handy, I'll get bacon. and I'll put like 16 strips of bacon on this thing. So you have this burger that's like that big, and it's got fat dripping all over the place because all that beef tallow in there. And the buns, I always cook the buns on lard. That you have to use lard. That way you get the full heart attack effect. And then you have your friends over for burgers, and you'll make them some burgers. Now, generally, they'll have a one patty, maybe a two patty heart attack burger if they're brave. But no one has ever taken on the four patty heart attack burger because when they see me eating that thing, they're like, this is horrifying. Can you imagine? Especially my friends that are 40s, 50s, gobbling all that fat and all that cholesterol. It's like a heart attack in a bun. And the fact that the buns are made of pork rinds, I think the calorie calculation that I did was over 10,000 calories in one burger. This
Wow.
thing is a monster. And I love it. I love it. It tastes so good. And every time that we have a get together, whether it's at their house or mine, even if I don't have the buns, I'll just eat 4 patties loaded with cheese and bacon if we have it, because it's just so good. And then, of course, dinner, it depends on what I have. Now, dinner tends to be a little more exotic. Now, generally, I like to have the ribeye steak or the T-bone. T-bone is my favorite cut. What I would usually do when it was affordable, I'd buy a big piece of meat called a chuck roll, and I would cut the steaks out of that. Very, very tasty. But when you're poor, sometimes you have to adapt. And there are other meats that are available for free. All you have to do is go out into your yard, and you may find one running around, or you might go to the canal with your crossbow, or maybe behind the bank, and you have your choice of delicious, fresh, free-range meats. You have parking lot chicken, which are basically feral chickens that are running around. You have Muscovy duck, which people call vulture ducks because they have funny looking red stuff on their heads, and they usually don't quack. They go. So you can choose one of them. And of course, the piece de resistance, the large lizard, the iguana. And those iguanas, they're always by the canal. They're running around. They're absolutely delicious. It's somewhere between fish and chicken. All depends on how you cook it. Now, a lot of the island people, they'll do a curry iguana. I hate curry. That stuff smells nasty. I won't eat that garbage. But what I like to do is either a boiled iguana, where you simply cut up the legs and tail, put it in boiling water, and then when it starts to swell, you can cut the skin and it'll come right out. I've actually made videos of cooking and eating that. And the other option is heart attack iguana. There's nothing like heart attack iguana. So what you do, you start off with the boiled iguana, add a lot of salt, so that way the meat really swells up. Then you're going to, when you boil it a little bit to soften it up, then you're going to batter it. So you get plenty of eggs, and then you get pork rinds, and you're going to put the iguana meat in the eggs, and then roll it around in the crushed up pork rinds, and you're going to fry it in pure tallow or lard. And that's going to give you heart attack iguana. Really, really, really tasty. Now you don't want to overcook it because it'll be quite tough. But as long as you cook it right, you just cook it just when the meat starts to darken a little bit, then you take it out. And it's crunchy, and it's really good. It tastes really good. And if you want to get a lobster feel, you can use either your heart attack iguana or your boiled iguana. Put some melted butter and dip it in the butter, and it almost reminds you of lobster. So those exotic meats are very tasty. Yes, they're not ruminant, but they're good. I love them. And of course, if you go fishing, you can always catch fish, shrimp, whatever else. My carnivore diet is not restricted to just meat. It's not just ruminant meat. I'll go for any meat that I can get my hands on, even if it's running around by the canal or the parking lot. And I'll tell you one thing, parking lot chicken, you can laugh, it's tough and all that, but it's flavorful and it's yellow. It's different than store-bought chicken. Store-bought chicken tends to be kind of white, not very dark, but this parking lot chicken, even the chicken breast, has a slight redness to it. I guess because they're constantly running around and flying. The Muscovy duck is just like steak. It's so good, especially if you cook it in beef tallow. You can barely tell the difference between that and ribeye. It's really, really nice. It's like a lean ribeye. That's what it is. So those are my meats of choice.
Wow, that is really interesting. Now, honestly, I'd like to. As crazy as it sounds for everybody else hearing this right now, if it sounds crazy to you, to me, it sounds sort of interesting. I don't know. I kind of now I'm a little curious about how it tastes because I remember having alligator before, and alligator was something that tastes very different. Like I haven't tasted anything like it. So is that sort of how iguana tastes like? Do you think if you've
Oh,
had alligator before,
I've
or
had gator. We've gone gator hunting before, and I've had gator tail and gator legs. The gator tail does have a slight metallic taste, and I think it's because gators are carnivores, and they tend to concentrate things like mercury and other heavy metals. But iguana is basically herbivore. They eat insects once in a while. It has a flavor between chicken and fish. The iguana meat, in my opinion, is better than gator meat. That's just my
hmm,
opinion. Now, most of the gator meat they serve in the tourist places, they're just battered with, flour and all this other crap and spiced up, and it doesn't even taste like gator. It tastes more like fried fish. And then they fry it in seed oils, which is, ugh, it's just terrible. I
yeah,
don't even why anybody would eat food cooked in that crap. I really don't know. Now, I do use seed oils to use as fuel, so I do have a lot of seed oils on hand, but I would never cook in that stuff. In fact, I just had a friend of mine give me some chicken. His daughter cooked. I thought it was cooked in lard, but it gave me diarrhea yesterday. Then I found out last night she cooked it in canola oil. Oh, I was so upset.
ah,
And I couldn't believe the effect that it had. You know, the canola oil, I mean, it didn't taste that bad, but man, did it tear my system up. So I had to go off
huh.
plan a little bit and I had to eat sauerkraut along with my pork last night. I do ferment sauerkraut that I give to my friends. I eat it occasionally. When you eat the low quality store bought meats, I found that adding sauerkraut to the meat, like if you're eating store bought chicken, store bought pork, because you can't afford beef, it does help. So I do eat some plant based foods, but that stuff is fermented for 3 weeks or more. It doesn't even taste like a plant. It's got like a vinegar like taste. It doesn't even, it's just mushy. It's like something that is like pre-digested. That's what it is. But it does help. And when you eat foods like that, but anything that's battered commercially, I can't even eat it. The smell of it is just enough to repulse me. And if I take a bite out of it, I'll spit it out. And one time I actually accidentally bought vanilla yogurt instead of the plain because once in a while I make my own yogurt, but if I'm away, let's say I'm not at the house, I don't have access to it, I'll buy some plain yogurt at the store, which is hard to get because almost all the yogurts are flavored. And I thought it was plain, and I took one bite out of it and I spit it out immediately. And then I looked at it and it was vanilla. I go, wow, I just hate things that are sweet so much. And anything that's got that battered or chicken McNugget like texture is gross to me. I can't even stand it. So I just have really weird tastes. When I eat meat, I like it to look like meat and taste like meat. And with my eyes closed, I can tell you what kind of meat it is. I know what chicken is. I know what fish is. I know what iguana is. You can try to fool me because they tell me everything tastes like chicken, but it does not. I know what it tastes like. Now, if you spice it, it's all going to taste the same. And this is what really gets me about fast food. No matter where you get it from, it always tastes the same. And they take pride in that. Oh, our food is consistent. I don't want to taste the same thing every day. When I buy my meat, it never tastes the same. I mean, ground meat is pretty consistent, but if I buy steak one week, the next week it's going to taste different. It's going to have a little more, a little less fat. It may taste a little more beefy or a little less. And that's the beautiful thing about wild meat. When you kill a wild iguana or duck or whatever, you never know what you're going to get. It may have more of a ducky flavor, or it may have more of a beefy flavor. You never know. So it's kind of fun. I like it. I find the carnivore diet infinitely interesting. It's enjoyable. It's fun. It's great. But when you're eating the processed commercial crap diet, that's not fun. And being forced to eat fruits and vegetables, ugh, nasty. I know people that love potatoes. I can't stand those horrible things. They're disgusting. A baked potato? Ew. I noticed they do put a lot of sour cream and butter on it. I guess that's the only way they can make it edible. But no, I can't. I couldn't eat that. The only way I could ever eat potatoes is deep fried in beef tallow, and even that, I don't really like potatoes. If I want something fried like that, I'll go outside. I'll grab some plantains from my tree. I'll cut them open, and I'll fry them in beef tallow, and those are better than French fries, if that's what you want. But you can't. I can only eat so much of that. I could eat probably one plantain, and then I'm sick of it. I don't want to eat anymore. And this is the thing, anything that's a carbohydrate-based food, I just get bored so quickly. Now, if you gave me ribeye steak, I had a friend challenge me. I ate 6 pounds of ribeye steak before I finally couldn't swallow anymore. I was still able to eat, but I couldn't swallow. I could barely breathe. I had to spit some of it up because I had eaten so much of it. And then I had to lay down for like 4 hours because I could barely move. But the hunger never went away. And this is the problem with meat. For me, it's like chicken. They sell chicken in a 10-pound bag. I can eat an entire 10-pound bag when I'm frying chicken. So what I have to do, I have to divide it in half. I eat 5 pounds and that's it, because there's always room for more meat. But when it comes to other foods, no interest. You couldn't force me to eat a mango. An avocado, I try to eat 2 bites of an avocado and I'll spit it out. I just can't stand the taste. The only fruit that I can eat and actually enjoy really is coconuts, because I like scraping out the inside of the coconut. I can eat that. It doesn't bother me. But other fruits, I can't. Ripe bananas, I can't eat because they make me throw up. I can eat bananas only when they're mostly green, just barely able to peel them. Then I could eat it, even when I was a kid. If there's any ripeness to it, I don't like it. Oranges, I like them sour. I don't like the sweet oranges. I hate grapefruit, even though it's sour. That is just a foul, nasty kind of fruit. And again, I may go months without touching a single fruit. As long as I don't have to, I won't eat them. If I've got meat, I'm happy. That's all I want. Like right now, I want to have some shrimp. I'm craving shrimp. And thankfully, shrimp was on sale for $2.98 a pound. So I bought a bag of it. I'm going to make shrimp. I'm either going to do it heart attack style or I'll just boil it. Heart attack shrimp is deep fried in tallow or lard. And then boiled shrimp, you just turn on the fire low and put the shrimp in there, and that's it. No salt, no spices, nothing. I love shrimp just as is. And this is another reason I don't eat out. Not only is it too expensive, but the food tastes awful. I've been taken by customers to restaurants that are supposed to be the best. They took me to a steakhouse one time, best steakhouse that he knew of in this area. It's not around anymore. And I ate the steak, and the steak was okay. It wasn't bad. But I said, look, I could cook better than that on my engine. And he's like shocked and upset. What do you mean? This is the best steakhouse in Miami. I said, the steak was good. I'm just telling you, I could cook the same steak on my engine. It's like, oh, how can you cook steak on an engine? Well, I can do it. I did cook a steak on the engine. I offered to him. He wouldn't eat it. He says, I'm not eating anything that came off an engine. But it was very good. It just, when you're a meat eater, you know what you like. Hey, I like raw meat. I don't eat it because I don't trust it, but I love chewing on raw meat. I can eat it without a problem. Doesn't bother me. I wouldn't eat any raw poultry. Again, I like the smell and the taste of it, but I'm afraid of the parasites and the bacteria and all that stuff. But it doesn't bother me. So I don't need a chef. What do I need a chef for? All I need is a piece of meat and a heat source, and I'll make it cook. I've cooked on a metal grate in my yard over wood. I've cooked on an engine. I've cooked in a solar cooker. I've made a delicious ribeye steak in a solar cooker I made from a satellite dish. It was one of the best steaks I've ever had. It was just so good. And I think because of the way it was cooked, the solar energy, the radiation is coming at it from all sides. So it was a very, very tasty steak. It didn't have that burnt crust on the outside. It was firm. It was very juicy on the inside. It was nice. And I flipped it twice. I think I flipped it 4 times. And the problem is I had to use long tongs because you don't want to put your hand in there when you got that solar cooker. It gets hot quick. You don't want to cook your hand. But again, you don't have to be a chef. You don't have to be an expert. All you have to know is how to manage heat and what meat to use. It just makes life so easy. Now, you're not going to be popular with your friends that want to take you to some fancy restaurant. That's not going to happen. You're not going to be popular with their wife who spent all day cooking that pie or that bread or all the rolls and all that stuff, because you're going to be going quack quack as they offer you this stuff. That's usually what happens. Somebody offers me donuts or cake, I go whack whack whack. Oh, I forgot. He doesn't eat that. That's what I'm known as. I'm known as the guy that doesn't eat desserts. So what are we going to give him instead of a cake? I say, give me a steak. You have your cake, I'll have more steak. Just buy more meat. So that's what they do. And a lot of times, my friends, they're such good people. After we've had a get together, they'll give me an extra steak or ground beef or whatever, usually the fine grass raised stuff, because they know that that's the quality stuff, they'll give it to me to take home. And I don't mind getting together with friends. I'll eat a little bit. Usually they'll put me on the grill because I'm one of the best when it comes to cooking steaks and burgers, and we'll do that. And then at the end of it, whatever meat they have extra, they give to me. I take it home with me. And sometimes there's meat that somebody didn't eat. I'll take that home and reheat it. Now, I don't use a microwave. My microwave is used as a storage unit. I put napkins in there. I don't use paper towels either, and I don't use toilet paper because I don't believe in waste. So all those things, that's another one of my little quirks, but I do keep them for my friends. So if my friend comes over, they have to use a bathroom, I'll hand them the roll of toilet paper, and they look at it. Why is this yellow? Oh, that's a very old roll. I think one of them was like 10 years old, roll of toilet paper, because I never use that stuff. I just don't see the purpose of it. And same thing with paper towels. You're basically using fiber to make something you're going to wipe your face with and throw away. What's the point? I have regular towels. I have soap and water. It works really well. So, that's just part of the lifestyle. But yeah, when you're eating meat all the time, it's just so pleasurable because it's simple. It's not like, oh, what's for dinner? What am I going to have for dinner? I just open up the refrigerator. I look, okay, got some beef, got some chicken, got some pork, got some fish, and I just pick it. And I cook it right at the moment. I'm not thinking about food. I'm working, I'm doing my thing. I don't think about food. I come home. Oh, it's time for dinner. Okay, what am I going to cook? I open the refrigerator. What do I have in here that might go bad? I'll eat that. And there's no food waste. I never throw out any food. Nothing ever goes bad, ever. So, how can you go wrong with that?
There you go. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of really interesting things. One of them, for that matter, that I found interesting, actually, that you mentioned, which does sort of make me wonder why you find the taste of it okay and the rest of them not as much, is coconut. Because I know that coconut has the saturated fat content is much higher, and it's sort of similar to that, actually, of animal products, which I don't know if your taste receptors are literally able to pick up on that, and that's the reason why you actually are okay with eating it. But that's something I find it really, really interesting.
I do eat some fruits and vegetables when I run out of meat, but only stuff I can get from my own yard. I'm really nuts because I boycotted Hollywood starting in 1985. I stopped watching TV in 2010. I don't believe in commercially raised fruits and vegetables. I won't buy any fruit or vegetable from any store ever. If I do eat a fruit or vegetable, it's something that I picked, something that I fermented myself, grew myself, but I will not. I don't. The problem with me, I don't support like exploited labor. I'm very much into the environment, and which is ironic because I drive diesel trucks and everything I have is old, but I believe 100% in the environment. I get into arguments with people that I know that are green idiots. The vegans that I know, I have vegan friends. They always talk about how important the earth is, and yet they're the ones that buy everything new. They have an electric car, which is one of the worst things you can have. They throw out tons of garbage. I mean, tons of it. I throw out, I think, one garbage can full of garbage in an entire year. And when I was recycling my plastic into diesel, I threw out zero. I went probably 5 years without throwing out a single piece of trash in all that time because I compost all the yard waste. A lot of the stuff that I remove from houses, I give away, recycle, sell, scrap, whatever. That's basically where all my trash comes from. When I clean out somebody else's place and I got to get rid of it, I'll take it to the dump or I'll put it in the garbage can. But I myself don't generate a lot of waste. And I believe in reusing and repairing and, right to repair and all that stuff. So my life, the whole principle of my life falls into that category. That's why people call me eccentric. I'm really weird. They say when you go to my house, it's like stepping back to 1960 or 1970. How many other people still use a wired telephone and have rotary phones?
That is old.
Yeah, and it works. You can call me, it works. And everything I have is wired. I don't really have anything wireless. I don't have a cell phone. I have a cell phone, but I use it as a camera. And I try to live old-fashioned. I have a payphone in my front yard because a lot of people don't even know what that is. And I don't drive any car from the 21st century. Everything I have has a V8 in it. So I believe in a whole different lifestyle. And the carnivore lifestyle fits so perfectly with that. Because when you think of someone driving around in a Prius or Tesla, you don't think about steak. But when you think about a 69 Dodge Charger, a muscle car, then you think about steak. You think about a diesel truck or van, you think about steak. You would never see me in some little tiny, like a Fiat 500. I couldn't even fit in the thing. And when it comes to expensive cars, I hate exotic cars. I know a lot of these internet influencers that come here to Miami, which they think is such a great place. They live in some stupid stack and pack high rise dump that's basically overpriced, painted white and gray, and they live an artificial life. And then they'll go out on the balcony and look at the view of a bunch of other stupid high rise stack and packs, and then they'll drive around in their Lamborghini thinking that they're living the good life. And me, I live in a rundown house surrounded by trees, ducks, all kinds of lizards and other wildlife, a crazy cat that's inside the house, and I drive old beat up cars, and I like it. I love my 69 Chargers. Go out there and ride around in that thing. And to save fuel, I ride my bike everywhere. I joke with everyone. When you own Fords, you're going to be a better cyclist. And that's what happened. My Ford started breaking down. I don't drive my Charger because, well, let's put it this way, the rust has taken advantage of it, and I haven't had time or money to fix it, but one day I will. But, but when it comes down to it, I don't, in an entire year, I use 5 gallons of gasoline. That's another thing. And I use very little electricity. If I had the ability, I would put solar panels on my house. But the thing is, my diet goes along well with this, even though people I know say that if everybody was like me, the environment would collapse. And I tell them if everybody was like me, it would be just the opposite. The environment would thrive because all these monoculture farms would be gone. All these shopping centers, condos, all this overdevelopment will be gone. Everybody would be living in a farm. You might have a few older people living in a few apartments around the city, and that's it. It'd be like in the old days. You leave the city, in 5 minutes, you're in the country. And then you drive long distances through the country, and all you see is cow pastures, cattle, goats, sheep, whatever kind of animals go in that area, chickens, ducks, pigs, whatever. And that's it. You wouldn't have Mount Trashmore, wouldn't exist anymore. There'd be no waste. And things would just be used more and more. Now, obviously, the financial system would collapse because they wouldn't be able to carry all that debt, and people wouldn't be overpaying for property like they are now. And, things would be a little more rustic, but I think it'd be a lot more enjoyable. You wouldn't sit in traffic all day, and there'd still be technology. But people criticize people like me just because they think they know everything. They look at me like I'm some kind of idiot, some kind of nut, or some kind of remnant from the past. I've had people accuse me of being Amish or Mennonite. I said, look, if I was Amish or Mennonite, I'd have facial hair. I don't have any. So you can't say that I'm Amish or Mennonite. I don't ride around in a buggy. But still, I have a 6-wheel buggy. It's a ATEX 6-wheeler that floats, but that doesn't count. It's not a horse and buggy. But the thing that I try to tell people is, look, if you're doing so well and you're enjoying your life, keep doing what you're doing. But, respect the rest of us. I found something that works for me. Why would I change it? I tried to change it. It didn't work for me. You can give me all the studies you want about how great vegetables are, but I'm going to eat the meat. And now that I know there's people like you and others out there putting the research out there, you can see that my diet is not actually that unhealthy. But for many years, that's all I was told, even by my own parents. It's unhealthy. You're not going to make it to 50. You're going to have a heart attack. You're going to have a lot of problems. And here I am, 56, feeling as good as I did when I was 25. So really, what's the deal? It's like my mom told me, if I put lard in my hair, it's going to fall out. Well, guess what? It looks the same as when I was a kid. So everything they've told me has been incorrect. And, what am I going to do? Now that there's all of you out there pushing the carnivore diet as a healing and a lifetime diet, what are they going to say? Some people still tell me I'm going to die. I had someone last week tell me that because they saw me eating lunch, which was basically just meat, steak I cooked on the engine. Oh, you're not eating any fruits or vegetables? I don't eat fruits or vegetables. Why am I going to eat that stuff? Oh, but you're going to have a heart attack. My dad had a heart attack. He ate steak every day. I say, yeah, but what else did he eat? Well, he did like his Coca-Cola. Well, there you go. So that's what I'm dealing with. And as you know, people, they always want to push their agenda, and that's the thing. So you have influencers. I'm the de-influencer. I'm not the one that's trying to sell you something. I'm the one that's just sharing what I did. You don't have to listen to the influencers. You could be like me, do whatever you want, and you can still thrive. So that's the whole story, and that's the lifestyle.
But yeah, once again, thank you so much for being on. And for anybody out there, like, he's a really good example. Once again, yeah, it should have been 41 years of a heart attack and still no heart attack. So clearly something's going on.
Yeah, not only that, I got a friend that has high blood pressure. He had to have a tooth pulled because his tooth was rotten. The last time I went to a dentist was in 1986. And I have crooked teeth, as you can see, and they wanted to pull teeth and put braces on there. And I just thought, pulling teeth is a bad idea. You only got so many. They're going to fall out. I might as well keep all that I got. Well, I haven't had a cavity. I haven't had a problem. I don't have any tooth pain. So that's another thing that's happened, is that the carnivore diet, I chew on meat all the time, the toughest, cheapest cuts. I chew on ice, which they told me was going to break my teeth. Never broke my teeth. I do all the wrong things, and yet I'm still here. How can it be? I should be dead now. I should be the one that's being hauled off on a stretcher over there to the hospital and, getting a bypass and or just dropping dead somewhere. And I'm still going. Yesterday I was moving kitchen cabinets out of a kitchen. The other guy I was working with was breathing hard. He had to take a break. I said, man, I got to get home. I'm going to have my lunch. And I just loaded it all up myself. I said, just sit there on the side. And I just threw it all on there by myself because, he's trying to help me and it's taking longer with help. I said, look, I can do this faster than you can. And I go through this all the time. And then then it's lunchtime. They see me eating meat. Like, well, where's the vegetables? What vegetables? Of course, these are the same guys that snack all day. They're having chips and crackers and all this crap. I knew one guy, that was the one that was telling me about Swedish fish. He said, do you like Swedish fish? I said, oh, I love fish. Then they bring some stupid cookie crap. Like, what is this? That's Swedish fish. Where's the fish? I feel like the ladies when I was a kid at the Wendy's commercial. Where's the beef? They have this big bun with this little tiny thing in there. Where's the fish? So, what can I say? I can have a lifetime of ridiculous experiences. I can make people laugh for hours while I'm looking like an idiot or looking like a nut. But that's just me. That's the way it is.
So for anybody out there who wants to know more about you, do you have any YouTube channel? Do you have any sort of other things that you would like other people to know about you in terms of the links that you'd like to share? I'll put them all in the description for anybody who's interested.
Well, I'm one of those people that I haven't really done much with social media. The last time I was active on social media is when they had MySpace. And then I had joined Facebook, but it was just so stupid. All these people updating where they were and what they did, and it just seemed kind of ridiculous. So I drifted away from the social media. Now, I did start posting YouTube videos in 2007, so I do have my YouTube channel, and you can see it is at Charger Mopar, which is named after my favorite car, 1968 to 70 Dodge Chargers. To me, that's the ideal car. And that's really it. If you want to look for me, just go on YouTube and look for 40-year carnivore, or Rick the Carnivore, or the Iguanavore, or whatever you want to call it, because I've had a lot of interviews. I've been interviewed by Dr. Anthony Chafee, Dr. Sean Baker, Bart Kay. Those were some of the early interviews. I've been interviewed by a lot of influencers, and I've been around. I haven't. Let's put it this way: the first time I was interviewed was in 2022 by Joey Schwartz. And I've been on as many of these channels as I can. Anytime somebody invites me, I go on. So just look for the 40-year carnivore. And again, I am the tallest carnivore. I'm one of the longest carnivores. And when you think of heart attacks, ducks, and you think about iguanas and the carnivore diet, there's only one, and that's me.
There you go. For anybody who wants to know, once again, the links will be in the description for anybody who's curious. So yeah, thanks again for being on. It's been a pleasure, Rick.
Anytime.
See you guys in the next one.